quality.
Well, you came to the wrong room.
Well, they outnumber us, which means we stay on topic.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
They can block the exits.
Oh, and they're buying at the bar.
Woo! Yeah.
Thank you in advance. Fortunately for you, I don't drink like I used to.
Yeah. Well, the problem is, of course, the bar's on the dealer's floor. Nobody can get in there.
Why is the rum always gone?
Because we're all pirates at heart.
Because we were there.
Well, that's like a Christopher Pike shirt. That's slick. Oh, actually, I guess the new one too. They kind of overlapped Pike and the new Earth. They did that on purpose too. Rebranding.
Got a bunch of leftover stock and shirts in it.
Did you guys see Into the Woods?
Not yet.
No.
It's this beautiful scene where what's his name, Chris Pratt?
Yes, Chris. I know.
Is singing on this waterfall, and he does the crook thing and tears the shirt open. And it's spectacular.
See, you managed to get your shirt off.
I can see what you meant about Night at Museum 3, though. Oh my God, the Hugh Jackman scene.
That was hilarious.
That was incredible.
Yep.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's a great ending to the series.
I caught that. I admire that kind of taste.
Watch the show. You don't know what's in there. Me too. That is Gene does. When they let the rock, they let Greg knock loose in the ship. It's the little things. Wait, I just had a really interesting idea. Are you stoned? Oh no! Oh no! That's all we're watching that right now. Maybe we're staying up and watching Galaxy Quest.
Yeah, because Netflix has.
Yeah, well, that's it. Hell with us. We'll just watch Galaxy Quest right here. Fired up.
Let's do this.
Good, Vic.
All right, we do this?
Do it.
All right, welcome everybody to the WordFire Press Writer's Block. My great pleasure to introduce these 5 authors right here. DJ Butler, David Boop, Josh Vogt, Quincy Allen, and Peter J. Wax. And I'm going to let them go through everything they've done and their little introductions, as it were.
Not everything we've done. You know, there could be
Well,
more.
Oh, not it.
Not it.
Oh, I'm first?
It's DJ. You get to go first.
Hi, I'm Dave Butler. For adults, I write under my initials DJ Butler. I've got my debut for middle readers coming in with Random House next year. But in the meantime, I'm very excited to be part of the WordFire. Thank you. I got a very tiny version of the cover on my phone if you want to see that.
Zoom in, eh?
Yeah. So in the meantime, I have WordFire Press, which is fantastic because these guys, you guys are actually, you chose well because this is in a changing economy, in a changing technological base for the delivery of stories. This is a team that's really shaking it up and taking the world by storm. So if you come down to the press booth, what you'll see that I've got here today is called Rock Band Fights Evil. I believe in honest titles. This is basically the Chronicles of Narnia. Okay. If the Pevensey Children were a foul-mouthed, gun-toting, damned rock and roll band.
So just like Chronicles of Narnia.
Other than that, yeah.
Just not as much allegory.
Weren't you going to name the next one The Lion, the Witch, and the Guitar Case?
It is, exactly right.
For people smart enough to get into a guitar.
Hi, I'm David Boop. I'm a Denver-based author. I have about 50 short stories out, and my first novel is being re-released from WordFire Press in August. It's called She Murdered Me with Science. It's a sci-fi noir. I don't believe in writer's block. I'll tell you that right now. Because when you have a paycheck on the line, you can't have writer's block. And yeah, so that's me.
I'm Josh Vogt. I'm an author and freelance writer, My WordFire Press title is actually coming out at the end of May. It's called Enter the Janitor. It's the first in a series known as The Cleaners, an urban fantasy about a supernatural sanitation company. Where instead of wizards and mages and sorcerers, you have janitors and maids and plumbers. And fighting the forces of corruption and whatnot. Yes. On the side of that, I also write for a number of role-playing game companies, and I have a sword and sorcery novel coming out from Pathfinder Tales, if any of you read that line, called Forge of Ashes. So those are what I have coming out.
So Enter the Janitor, that's like Ghostbusters with dirty jokes?
Pun intended.
You're going to hell for that.
Oh, if that's the only thing.
Not so much. My name is Quincy J. Allen. I'm a cross-genre author. I've written a slew of short fiction, some of it for WordFire, some of it not. I also edit a series called Penny Dread Tales. We've got a best of here. I've got a novel called Chemical Burn. It was my first novel, actually is getting re-released after an edit with WordFire Press. Hopefully we'll have it for Emerald City if anybody travels along. And then also this year I have a steampunk series coming out called Blood Ties. It's actually the Blood War series, and that's a clockwork gunslinger ends up getting sucked into a blood war and a demon army, and mayhem ensues.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Peter J. Wax. I am the managing editor of WordFire Press. And
So we buy him a lot of drinks.
Love this life. And I'm holding you to that. I like to say that I'm the most famous person that you've never, ever heard of. I started my creative career when I was about 6 years old as an extra on the set of Revenge of the Nerds. I was a kid that was walking around in the carnival, like making comments with my family about the jocks and the nerds.
I remember you.
Right. The precocious one. I was also in Thunder Alley, did several other things with acting, decided I wanted to be a storyteller, was professionally published by the time I was 15 in high school, and was featured on Fox News because of my political commentary in science fiction under my pen name, Demosthenes. This was before I read Orson Scott Card.
Yeah.
I was actually a fan of the Greek orator. From there, I went into game design. I was the lead designer for Cyberpunk, the collectible card game. I worked on the Allegiance game. I've worked with Steve Jackson, John Zinser, James Ernst, a bunch of the awesome guys from the adventure game and hobby industry. I then went on and decided to go back to publishing novels, published my first novel, walked away from a big deal to self-publish because I wrote a book that could be read in any order. And it's the first time that that's happened. It's a time travel. It just kind of seemed like it made sense to me. Ended up as a guest speaker for Mensa because of it. And at UCLA, then I went into comics and wrote with Guy Anthony DeMarco, a comic called Behind These Eyes, was a finalist for the Bram Stoker Award. And I'm forgetting something.
So, in other words, he doesn't do anything half-assed. That's
yeah,
for sure.
no, I don't. I tackle life.
He does everything half-assed.
Yeah, you don't want to see me go full tilt. But anyway, Kevin Anderson kind of noticed me doing my thing, plucked me out of the crowd, had me start rebuilding WordFire Press, getting to bring these guys along for the ride, and yeah, most famous person you've never heard of.
It's been a lot of fun so far.
Oh, upcoming releases. I have a series with Eric Flint and Kevin Anderson and Eitan Collin coming out from Bane in early 2016. As well as an urban fantasy series also coming out from Bane, but it's with Jim Mintz, so I don't know exactly when that's going to be.
It could be any time.
He's notoriously as slow as I am.
No, he's slow.
There's a camera, I'm being nice.
All right, actually, is there anything anyone would like to ask them? I was actually, one of my things I brought up earlier is the series I'm fans of. And so, is there really, what is your influence really in your career, in your writing, your biggest influences?
Well, I'm certainly not a Nightmare Before Christmas and Doctor Who fan.
He's got a lot of ties, by the way. Keep an eye on just every time you see him, he'll have a different tie. For me, Robert Heinlein is one of the big ones. Keith Laumer, Zelazny. If you can't tell, I'm actually older than most of the people here. But yeah, I mean, I cut my teeth on books that my brother had given me, and he's 13 years my senior, so I was reading a lot of the classics way back when. But I'm developing a real taste for a lot of the new stuff. But certainly, I think you'll see Heinlein. I like to think, anyway, in my writing.
I've got a wide variety of influences. I mean, I can go back to C.S. Lewis and Tolkien, obviously, as being many that we are infected by. Jim Butcher is one of my favorites that I've kind of not grown up reading, but have learned a lot from. Brandon Sanderson is another favorite of mine. Also, actually, one of the biggest influencers would be Ray Bradbury. I can't get enough of his work, and the way that he blends science with deeper concepts and ideals and characters has always astounded me.
So I actually started being very influenced by mystery writers when I was young. Agatha Christie, Arthur Conan Doyle, things like that. I didn't really get into science fiction until after Star Wars. And of course then the first novels I read were Star Wars novels. So, you know, Alan Dean Foster and Brian Daley and so forth. So my earliest influences as far as science fiction were all media tie-ins, which were really awesome because now I'm working with and co-writing with Kevin J. Anderson, who is like the king of media tie-ins. Just recently got the Grand Master from the International Association of Media Tie-ins. So I've learned a lot from him. But yeah, it was kind of a backwards way into science fiction. I had to learn all the classics after I was already in and didn't read so many before.
You know, it's funny when I think about the books that I've read a lot. I can tell you, you know, I read Tolkien when I was really young, but actually what I write isn't much like Tolkien.
Well, there's demons.
There's bad guys.
Balrog.
And Tolkien's got like a 45 in it, doesn't it? So
it's like Fellowship of the Ring
yeah.
if Frodo was part of a band.
Yeah. So
okay, we're gonna have to write that short story just so you know. So
we can make that out. All right. In terms of writers who I think I actually write like in some ways, I think Neil Stephenson's terrific. No matter how cerebral the concepts that he's dealing with from a science fiction point of view, you think about like Anthem, sometimes they're pretty cerebral. They're always an action-adventure story. There's always a rollicking good yarn, and I feel strongly about that. And I also really like Tim Powers. Remember Tim Powers? I read The Drawing of the Dark when I was a kid, and there was like nothing else by him at the time. It's a terrific story about how the fact that civilization in the West is founded upon the brewing of beer, and every 1,000 years there's this magical dark brew that has to be tapped. The dark kind of rises to try and take control when it happens, and it's like Suleiman's siege of Vienna when this is going on. So I love what I love about Tim Powers. And you should read like Declare or The Anubis Gates, is that he uses a lot of real history, real world literature, and tells fantasy stories with it. And it's often hard to find the line between what he's made up and what the real history is. And a lot of my writing, I take a similar approach.
Well, and Tim was one of the progenitors of the steampunk movement too, with Anubis Gates and stuff like that.
He was one of the three.
In the 80s?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so K.W. Jeter made up the word steampunk to describe what he and Tim Powers and James Blaylock were writing, which was sort of Victorian rooted fantasy and sci-fi of various kinds.
Yeah, so definitely read them. Good stuff.
Does anybody have any questions for the authors?
What's an author's or your lifestyle like? Like, is it one of those? do you have like a routine when you're not doing a Comic-Con, where you get up, have a cup of coffee, write for a couple hours?
Gypsy dancers and massages.
Yeah, and massages.
No, that's not true.
Just to
Yeah.
loosen up the brain. I mean, I get it, but is there like a set routine that you have to be in, or is it just come at a whim?
I highly recommend a routine. I think that's really important. For a few years, I was writing full time, and then it was like a day job. You got up, took kids to school, and then you worked for 8 hours. I have another day job right now, and I feel the challenge around not being able to do exactly that. So no, right now it's not like that for me. Right now it's a lot of, you know, I go to work and then when I'm on a plane after having to go with a client, I have 4 hours sitting in coach trying to write like a Tyrannosaurus Rex while the guy next to me is getting drunk by the minute, right?
True inspiration.
Yes.
It's glamorous.
Routine is important. It's not essential. It's not. In fact, usually you have to find a way to write productively before you can make it a real routine. Although Elmore Leonard, what was he, an insurance adjuster or something? For 10 years, got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and wrote 2 hours every day before going to work. So.
Yeah, I'm one of those people he was describing at the end. I have a very, very, got it right now. I have a very chaotic life. I'm a single dad of a special needs child. I'm a temp worker, so some days I work, some days I don't know. So I tell people I'm a binge writer. Every opportunity I get, I just binge. I write as much as possible, and then I go throw up afterwards. So,
For me, it's a little different because I'm a freelancer and that's my full-time job. And most of that is like copywriting for different companies and sales and advertising and that sort of thing. So I write pretty much every day, but it's not always my own fiction or projects. So usually for me, it is blocking out times that, okay, I need to set aside the freelancing, I need to put my clients on hold and go work on my own things. So yes, having some sort of routine or structure helps for me. Otherwise, as a self-employed, you can't dither the whole day away and have nothing to show for it. So yeah, it's often get up, get a few projects out of the way, write some of my own, do a few more projects, and just kind of hop back and forth between them.
This is an example of blocking out time. From here, I fly back tomorrow and I've got a week off work. And my wife's taking the kids and I'm just going to have a writing retreat in my own house and write a book next week.
And for me, I'm similar with what Josh goes through. I'm a consultant or contractor. One of my gigs, and I've got a slew of them. One of them is if you look at any of the WordFire books, the print interior. So somebody has to take the manuscript that's finalized and put it together in a book, put headers, footers, section breaks, chapter heads, tables of contents in the short collections. There's at WordFire Press, there's one guy who does that work and the ebooks, and you're looking at him. Do contract book design and stuff for some of the independent authors I know.
That's only on Sundays when we let him out of the dungeon.
Yeah, you know, and so it's
he actually did mine.
Oh yeah, that one too. In fact, there is not a book on this table. No, I didn't do Green Hornet. You threw me a curve.
It's not on the
actually,
table.
no, those three. David's the odd one. But which is okay. No. But literally everything else. Get those back. And I'm trying to pick up more clients because I was a tech writer. So 17 years in IT, I get laid off 6 years ago, and I'm going to be a writer because I always wanted to. What I've had to do is I had a tech writing job, and then that kind of dried up in the past 6 months, so I'm desperately trying to find more clients. So that's, and I get you where I need an income. I have a mortgage and a car, and it's a Hyundai, but it's my car.
Still not free.
Yeah, and so I need to do that while, you know, and the publisher that put together this collection of short stories, I owe them a novel that's now 7 months late. And that's killing me because I could have another title out, but I'm doing work for WordFire, I'm doing work for David and Aaron Michael Ritchie. I mean, it's hard to balance and make sure you're having the discipline of writing every day, and that's how you become really an author. It's writing every day for 4+ hours at a time.
I'm really ashamed of you being 7 months late on a book. That should never happen, right, Peter?
There's a story there.
Yeah, I'm late on my book to Peter.
But you know, the good news is that I was able to, I edited Chemical Burn to get back to them. So I'm whittling away at these big projects I have. This year I should have Chemical Burn, Blood Ties, Blood Curse, how to actually do ebooks and print titles, and Rise of the Thermopylae. So 5 titles this year done. So they've been I've been whittling away at them, and they're all going to hit this year, which is kind of the way to do it. You know, so you find ways to make it work. Otherwise, you won't. And I'm just looking to get over the hump, so I can write full time, get back to where he was.
So, let's talk about pace.
Nobody can compare to you.
Well, Quincy, how long did it take me to give you the green light, and how many changes did we make in that window when it came to Chemical Burn's final read-through?
It was, for the last one, we went through 2 cycles with Vivian, back and forth, and then the third with you was pretty fast, fairly fast actually. But ultimately, we started working on that back in June or July, really?
Mm-hmm. And then when you forwarded it to me at Superstars?
Oh, and that was, you had it to me, well, the second time. But in that one, it was a couple of days. Yeah, well, on the second time, we said we were talking, no, it was 1 week.
When you emailed it to me for the final green light, and I gave you the first chapter notes and then how to make the tweaks through and add that last chapter, hour and a half.
Oh, yeah.
30,000 words.
Well, that, yeah.
When you get busy enough and when you start hitting a crest in your career, you get to a point where you have to get it done or you don't. It's not about routine anymore. It's not about pacing.
It's a job.
You get it done or you don't. I am working on my new fiction in 15 to 30-minute increments on Microsoft Word on my cell phone while standing in line at security at the airport. That is where I get the most writing done, is the security lines. Bless the TSA for that.
You should send them a thank you then.
Yes, I will. I've been home 10 days so far this year. And my pace is going to continue at that rate. There is no such thing as routine for me anymore. There was a time when I would wake up and I would saunter over to the computer and I would sit down for 6, 7, 8 hours. But I'm at critical mass right now, and with 3 bestsellers, aiming towards a lot more, I am at the point where I have to just do my best to make every single second count, because you don't really earn what you would professionally in other jobs until you're at about 7 bestsellers.
Yeah.
So there's this critical mass in between, and that's why things like freelance writing and being the managing editor of a press are key to this lifestyle.
Yeah.
The routine is dictated by who is paying you.
Yes, prioritization.
What the priority is contracts and deadlines. And things like people who say that they're just writing for the passion, just for the fun, and that sort of thing, that we still enjoy it and we still love it. But it is, what's the next contract, when's the next deadline, and how do we get that completed? Because we're trying to be professionals, and professionals finish things on time. And turn things in on time. And communicate when we don't.
And well, to clarify, if I could, just think on the, I'm 7 months late on a book. There was no advance. The contract's pretty lightweight, and I love the publisher. I love these people. They've been really good to me. But my bills come first. Yeah, and they understand that. I mean, I talk with AT all the time. But that's what you do. You absolutely prioritize where your next paycheck is going to be, and whichever one's biggest goes first. And then you do your best to jam everything in so that you're getting it all done. But if you have to sacrifice, you sacrifice the free stuff and the little stuff.
Yeah. The least pain.
Know where you're hopefully going to end up.
You treat it like a business.
Yes, it is.
If you want it as a career, it is a job, it is a business, it is an industry. And there's the art side of it, there's the craft side of it, and that has to be there, because it doesn't matter how good your business plan is, if you don't write well, no one's going to want to read it. You have to live up to those expectations to some degree. But if you don't have a 5 or 10 year business plan, you're gonna trip and stumble along the way, and you're gonna make mistakes that you could have avoided.
And there are very few things that aren't recoverable from them. There's some.
And that's true no matter what level you're at. When I was out working on Alias for ABC Studios, one of the big things was they were trying to figure out 3 seasons in how they wanted to handle their series plan and their creative plan with certain aspects of franchising that all of a sudden they were realizing we needed to develop this ahead of time. The big thing was they wanted a collectible card game. They wanted to cash in on the Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, all of that. And they wanted to focus on storyline gaming and get something that was non-electronic out there to explore ancillary rights. But you can't do that without a plan ahead of time to do so. And they discovered that one, and that's why you never saw Alias, the card game.
Well, and let me bring up something real quick here. There's a reason why we're all here and why we are all part of WordFire. If you're going to... We're handsome.
We are.
Well, that's a Handsome Author Society. That's a completely different panel. We're here because when we decided that we were going to become writers, we realized that like most startups, it's not a singular process. It used to be writing was you sat in your house alone, typed up a manuscript, sent it to people that you never saw, that got edited by people that you never saw, and publishers you never saw, and stuff like that. And you could just sit at your home and occasionally maybe go out and do a book signing, and that would be fine. But this industry has changed, and like any sort of tech company or anything like that, you have to build a team around you. And I've been very fortunate in my career to have pulled people around me who have the same vision, the same dream as I do. And in doing so, we have supported each other in our careers. We've had each other's backs. We have been honest when we've said a cover doesn't look good, or something needs to be edited better, or you forgot an entire chapter, things like that. These guys have been brutally honest with me for, I started this path seriously back in 2002, and I've met a lot of these guys along the way. And I could not be here today. I would not be on this panel if it wasn't for the friends, the peers that I've built around me who understood that I had a passion and I wasn't going to give up, and I was going to be up there with Kevin J. Anderson and so forth. That's important to have, and that needs to be part of your business plan right off the bat, is finding people you can trust who believe in you as much as you believe in you.
Let me throw one other thing briefly, and it's something I mentioned to David last fall. I came into this game in 2009, 10 really. But one thing that, in talking with David, he's been at this a long time, and I respect him for it. And I told him straight up, you have to have staying power. If you want to make this happen, you have to be undauntable, because you don't know if you're going to hit in 1 year or 5 years or 20. So that's a big piece of it, and you got to factor that into your planning. You may not hit your milestones, right? And if not, it's how bad do you want it, and you're going to invest a lot of time to get there.
Two things to jump in on that, actually.
You go, I'm next.
Okay, he's next. All right. The first thing is on the lightning strike and how long you're going to have to invest in it. You see the cases where there are lightning strikes in the industry, like all of a sudden an author just comes out of nowhere, right? Like Jim Butcher is my favorite example. All of a sudden, bam, Jim is just everywhere. Dresden is all over the place, and it's amazing. And he's actually called one of the Black Swan authors, the long shot author. That's his Twitter, @longshotauthor. And everybody seems to forget that for 8 years he ran around conventions buying his own little booth, schlepping Dresden, saying, "Have you heard about my private eye who's a wizard? I play a Nero, and now he's Mr. Cool, Mr. Awesome, Mr. Lightning Struck there." The amazing stories of people who are instant successes always have instant is years and years and years of unseen work. On the flip side to that, this is also not a story of conflict. We are not doing something that cannot stretch across every model. And the example there is that our booth, the WordFire booth, has Kevin Anderson, has Jody Lynn and I, has Dan Wells at it. We've had Brandon Sanderson, we've had Peter Beagle. Tor partners with us, even though we're indie. Bain partners with us. HarperCollins is starting to work with us, with Dan. We're working with the big New York houses just as much as we are getting to know the indie and self-published authors and trying to get everybody working together. We're all in this industry to create, and finding the way that we can have time to create around these crazy routines while still managing to figure out a path that everybody can succeed on. That's a big part of why we work together and how we work together.
So two things, and now they're both corollaries of things Peter has said. So the first is, he was talking about the process of traditional publishing. It's interesting, when you go to a bookstore, you see all those shelves of books and you think, these books are all here to be bought, and that's actually not true. Most of them at the end of the day are going to have their covers torn off and be pulped. They're going to be destroyed. What those books are, and the reason that you want traditional publishing, if you can get it, is those are little posters that say, "Buy me, I look good. I'm sitting there on the shelf next to something that you already know and love."
Assurance of trust.
Those are little posters, and you should want that. Your plan you may decide that, let me rephrase that, it's a desirable thing. You may decide that your strategy goes a totally different way, but don't snub that model entirely. It's still out there. The second corollary is this. This as a vocation, so we talk about it sort of as a business, but I think as a vocation, I think writing is interesting because it encompasses two very, very different roles. On the one hand, being a writer is being a shaman. It's digging deep. It's trying to find your way down to the roots of things, down to a real meaning, and being a guide spiritually, culturally, socially to people, helping them find their way to whatever, to peace, to adulthood, to happiness, right, to God, whatever it is. On the other hand, being a writer makes you a carny. Because you can write whatever awesome thing, right? And if you just put it out and it's on Amazon and no one knows about it, it doesn't matter how great it is. It doesn't matter how great it is. So this is a great book. So you learn to soft shoe, and you go and you tell jokes at conventions, and you carry a guitar around, you play music, and you do whatever you can. And people will say, "Oh, that guy is interesting. He was really funny. I think I'm going to go read his book and find out what's in it."
You crack jokes on panels.
You crack jokes on panels.
I do magic tricks.
He does magic tricks. And that's such a. So many people want to be the shaman and don't realize that you got to be the carny too. You got to be the carny too.
Well, it's important because, like, you know, sometimes we will buy full albums on our MP3 players, and we'll put it on random, and you may not hear all the songs on that album, you know, with all the other MP3s. I mean, I have like 300 albums on my MP3 player, and I don't hear half of those albums when I'm sitting and listening to it. Well, the same thing happens with these e-readers, the iPods, the Nooks, Kindles. It's one thing to have somebody download your book because it looks interesting, but if you make a personal connection with them, they're more likely to read your book, and that's what you want. You want it to be read, you want it to be reviewed, you want people to say that did something for me. It made me laugh, it made me cry.
You made a connection.
Yeah, and yeah.
Just out of curiosity, how many people here are writers, aspiring authors? Okay, just wanted to make sure that we are talking of interest to the folks who are here. Yeah,
It's late for that.
yeah, I know.
We've been doing it left, right?
We only got, I think, a couple, 2 minutes left, so either questions or we can talk about books, whatever.
Yeah, you're.
I just had a question about anthologies. You know, do they hold a spot in your publishing schedule
Yes,
in the next
Yes.
years?
if they pay.
Well, the great thing about most anthologies don't sell that many copies, but what's wonderful, the wonderful opportunity they may represent is you get an anthology with Kevin Anderson, or you get an anthology with Larry Correa, or somebody who's going to sell, Jody Lynn Nye, who's going to sell 10,000 copies when you wouldn't sell 10,000 copies on the strength of your name. Well, now 10,000 people have something by you, and some of them are going to read it, right?
It's a stepping stone.
Anthologies.
Yeah.
We tilted these up because they're anthologies.
Yeah.
So it's a potentially a really good marketing tool, networking tool, a cross-pollination of fan bases tool.
It's a gateway drug, and the first one is always free.
Oh, which reminds me, I have a free short story for you all. As you
There
can
it
see.
is. Coincidentally, right?
Complete. So yeah, no, one of the great things about it is sometimes you just want to play in a world. Maybe you've thought that you want to write steampunk, and there's a lot of steampunk anthologies out there, and you can try your hand at it and see if it connects. May I recommend Penny Dread Tales?
Thank you, David.